Did you ever hear about the story of Cummins Prison located in Arkansas that almost toppled the Canadian government? No? Let me tell you about it. In 1999, 200 Canadians descended upon D.C. demanding answers about why the Canadian blood supply was tainted. A company called HMA was awarded a $3 million contract to run a prison plasma business. So essentially, they sold the plasma from the prisoners to Canada. You see, the United States is like the number one exporter of blood. Lo and behold, it looked like that blood was contaminated with HIV and hepatitis C. Turns out prisoners are not an ideal candidate for blood donations. And for 2 decades, the U.S. sold them contaminated blood that literally sickened thousands of people across Canada and UK and other parts of Europe. Because of the warnings against the use of prison blood and transfusions within the United States after 1982, the prison system decided to ship the blood abroad instead, and the blood was sold to a Montreal company, Continental Pharma Crino. HMA was cited in 1983 for health and safety violations, and after that, it created a subsidiary called Arkansas Blood Components to take over the program. Well, why didn't they just stop selling the blood altogether? Well, you see, blood is a good industry. It turns out it's 10 times more profitable than oil. Well, let me show you. So in 1998, a barrel of oil would have cost about $42, while a barrel of blood would have been about $67,000. That is why they chose not to give it up. And more than 10,000 people were infected throughout Canada and the UK and other parts of Europe. And it turns out that Canadian laboratory was liable too. You know, and at some point they found out that the blood was contaminated, but, you know, that their domestic supply was so small, importing blood and plasma became absolutely necessary. So, yep, they were negligent too. And the Canadian Red Cross actually ended up losing their contract with the Canadian government. Coincidentally, the governor of Arkansas at the same time was Bill Clinton, and he signed into law some blood protection stuff. Similar to our vaccine protections, they have the same ones for blood products as well. And the owner of HMA, well, he was a Rockefeller. And in 1993, our prison plasma system officially ended. And just an FYI, Britain set aside $1 billion in 2010 for their victims from this. To date, nobody has ever been held accountable in the United States, and no criminal investigations have ever taken place. And while this blood scandal was global news, we were eating up the Monica Lewinsky scandal. Sometime around 2005-ish, this documentary came out, Factor 8, the Arkansas Prison Blood Scandal. Fortunately, it's been wiped from the internet, so good luck trying to get your hands on it. However, in 1993, the prison plasma business went down. They stopped it. Interestingly enough, our native and indigenous populations, their children started disappearing. So once they stopped using the prisoner blood, we start noticing a spike in our missing children. Also, remember, our native indigenous populations have the highest concentration of Rh negative and O type bloods, the highest demand in the blood market. And then our borders slowly started getting out of hand. Coincidentally enough, people coming in from South America, what do they have in common with our indigenous people? They also share that same blood type factor. And thank you to Parabiosis and the NIH, we now know that in the blood market, the highest demand is for Rh negative and O type bloods. And we now know that our blood platelet market revenue is going to cross the $5 billion mark by 2026. Yes, this makes more money for the United States than oil. Just saying, and we lead the way. But interestingly enough, we don't have enough donors apparently. Suspect. We have a possible connection between our southern border, the missing indigenous children, and the blood industry.